Good evening, and welcome to another steampunk interview here by Ilya Rostov at SteamPaper. And this is all leading up to the fabulous Steampunk Over Ether festival that we're hoping to run over 25th, 26th of April, which is going to be a virtual steampunk festival. And it's going to be a kind of community thing. And it's going to be hosted on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're going to have lots of different contributions and different people. We've had quite a good reception, actually. We've got quite a lot of people responding already, which is brilliant. We're going to have videos from performers. We're going to have probably some interviews. We're going to have some workshops. We're going to have some talk about artists' work. We're going to even attempt to do a live shopping channel style show, which should be hilarious, and lots of other fun and nonsense. So if you've got any ideas for anything or you want to submit anything, then please send it in. I've got where are we? I should put up here we go. I should put up this. There you go. news@steampaper.co.uk. That's the email address to send things to. If it's a bit big, then you can always send it via WeTransfer to news@steampaper.co.uk. And I'll be talking in one of these videos. I'm going to dedicate one of these videos to kind of different ways of collaborating and different things, tools you can use, including WeTransfer, talk about Patreon. And I'm also going to be summarising all the wonderful things that people are doing, because there's people all over the internet doing some amazing stuff, streaming stuff, live stuff, videos, all sorts of wonderful things. So I'm going to talk about those in a future video. But tonight, I'm going to be talking to two wonderful creative people, a force of nature, and they make a great partnership. One's mainly a writer and one's mainly a artist. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tom and Nimue Brown. Hello.
Hello.
Tom Nimue Brown and a Womble. That's cool. So how are you both?
Well, present and accounted for.
Good. I mean, I suppose in terms of self-isolating, being a couple means that at least you can still carry on creating together.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, cool. So how would you describe yourselves then, each of you?
Let me see. Several years ago, I had a very short bio that I think probably still stands up. Lunatic, sometimes raving.
That's very succinct. And Nimue, how would you describe yourself?
Other than tired. I get bored easily, so I'm not very kind of on brand with anything. I wander about and go where the fancy takes me, so I'm a marketing disaster. But
I took advantage of that, so it's okay.
Good. Well, we've got a few people watching already, which is great. Arthur Foot says hello. Hello, Arthur Foot. And Malika's watching, and we've got a couple others, I think. So that's all good. We will be taking questions, by the way. So anybody watching this, if you want to ask Tom and Nimue a question about art, writing, drawing, or anything else that comes to that, then please do. I can see all your comments coming up next to me here. So if you've got a question, please do ask it. And now, obviously, one of the things that you're both known for, or perhaps mainly known for, is the Hopeless Maine series of graphic novels. And in fact, it's really become rather more than just a series of graphic novels. It's really now become a world, a whole kind of it's an entire world. So I was going to ask you, how did it all start? How did Hopeless Maine start? And I happen to know that this is kind of wound up with the story of how you met as well, because initially you weren't Tom and Nimue Brown. That the Brown bit came later. You were Tom and Nimue. So tell us a bit about how Hopeless Maine started and how you got together.
Right. Well, I started it back when I was in the U.S. And originally it was going to be, interestingly enough, a combination of sequential art, comics, and music. And we've got back to that, which is wonderful. So I was, in my garret working away at this, and I was also looking for illustration work. And a publisher, Whiskey Creek Press.
Whiskey Creek Press.
It's got whiskey in it, so it's good. Sent me to Nimue to do a book cover for her, and I joined her e-group. This is back when e-groups were a thing. And she was serializing her novel, Breathing in a Stone House, and I fell in love with her writing first. And then I sort of begged her to write Hopeless Maine because I knew this was exactly the right voice for Hopeless Maine.
I'd never written comics, so initially I said no, and Tom thought this was because I was all sort of posh and upmarket or something, which is vaguely ridiculous.
I was so embarrassed.
And after a bit of a wrangle and a process, I started doing it as though I was writing just for voices, because I have very little visual imagination, and I thought, well, Tom doesn't really need me to imagine what anything looks like, but I can do the talky bits. He's brilliant at setups. Couldn't plot his way out of a wet paper bag, we feel collectively. Nick his ideas, and then I try and thread them together to make them plausible, and off we go. And it's been great. We've done it with a few things now, not just Hopeless. But
cool.
Fun.
So now Hopeless has kind of moved on quite a bit over the years from that initial kicking off. So for those people who aren't kind of familiar with what Hopeless Maine is, can you tell us a little bit about Hopeless Maine? Now, it's an island, isn't it? So tell us a little bit about the island.
Right. Hopeless Maine is an island, and if it were our world, and I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it isn't, but if it were our world, it would be in Casco Bay off the coast of Maine. And it has gradually been cut off from the rest of the world, and it is now a bit lost in time. And it's a bit haunted, and there's things.
A bit haunted.
It's a bit haunted.
I'd say it was majorly haunted.
I think, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got every major possible Gothic trope.
Is that what you're going for? I mean, if you're missing any, do you want to know about it?
Yeah.
And
okay. We've taken each one of them and just sort of twisted them and yes, made them our own.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions coming in actually, so I'm going to save a couple of them for later. Now I know you. We'll come back to Hopeless Maine in a minute, but you collaborate with lots of different people. I know you've both done writing and illustrations for lots of different people. So Ian Crichton has asked, who are your favourite collaborators?
Yeah,
I knew that would be one you would want to answer. Who would want to answer that one?
Bad man. Love you all equally.
Okay.
Well, I think for me it tends to be whoever I'm working with at the moment, because that's what I'm most excited about because I'm doing it. But yeah, I love collaborating with people. It brings out the best or possibly the worst in me, depending on how you look at it.
Sometimes both.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter later, but as part of the Kickstarter, one of the things that people got as part of that was actually if they pledged the Kickstarter early, they got their own obituaries. So Arthur Foot III is asking, did you enjoy writing a large amount of obituaries? And he's saying he certainly enjoyed reading his. In other words, did you like killing people, I think is what he's really asking.
Yeah. Why be an author? It's very cathartic. Yeah, some of them were easier than others because there were a few people in there that I was conscious were either going through health issues or, otherwise fragile, and go, oh no, I don't want to kill this person because they might actually, and that would be awful. But that aside, it was quite an entertaining process, and trying to find kind of good deaths for people that they would enjoy and find. I mean, that's a gloriously ridiculous concept once I got in there. And the challenge of that was very entertaining, and the responses were largely great. So it was mostly fun. Sometimes it was a bit of an, oh my God, I have to kill 3 people today. But
it was
problems to have.
A serious killing spree.
It was quite the rampage in the end. So,
now, I've got a follow-up question actually from, hang on a second, from Nimrod, basically saying, are there any people whose obituaries you'd like to write?
Wow.
You could just say yes.
We could just segue into politics here in a sad and messy way. Let's move on.
Okay. Nils has put a comment which I think is worth reading out. Nils has said, I had imagined your flat to be more like an aquarium filled with odd patches of floating opaque green bits and writhing with tentacles. I don't mind admitting I'm very disappointed.
That's
So-
the other wall over there.
I mean, there are some elements. Hang on, I'm just going to put you on full screen for a second. There are some elements around you there of apart from the Womble, which is fairly innocuous. Yeah, there we go. There's a fairly frightening beast, which I believe is a spoonwalker. One of the we can talk about animals on Hopeless Maine in a bit. And there is a cup full of tentacles, obviously.
So?
Yeah, cup full of tentacles.
A dead bird
A dead bird. Okay,
with a scarf.
to keep him warm.
Yeah, that's a referee for zombie football.
Of course. Oh, I like that. Is that some form of headgear?
It is.
It is.
Very nice, very nice. I see you're not tempted to model that at all in any shape, way, or form.
You say that.
Anyway, I might have guessed that was coming. Very nice. Yes, I like that. Actually, the tentacles are superb. Did somebody make that for you?
Yes, it was a gift. I can't remember the name of the person who made it, but Kat Strauss got it for us, and it's wonderful.
It's lovely. It is rather wonderful. Hang on, I'm going to put you back on full screen so we can see it. Oh, hang on. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Yes, it's now it's looking at me and freaking me out. I'm going to... Okay.
We're here for. We're here to
So-
look you out.
We talked a little bit about Hopeless Maine, the island, a mysterious place full of all sorts of gothic tropes and stuff, and the graphic novel. And I'm just going to pop up a page from the graphic novel so people can get an idea of your artwork, which is quite amazing. So we've got a page there, and we've got panels and the writing. Now this all started with The Gathering, so I'm just going to pop that up on screen. And that was the first of the graphic novels, but I think that one is actually, is that 2 installments sort of in one?
Yes. We were originally published in the US, and there were 2 books, Personal Demons and Inheritance, that got squished together in the Sloth edition, beautifully squished. And then, as if that were not enough, also we put the prelude that had always been intended to be at the start of everything, The Blind Fisherman, starts it off. So it's Blind Fisherman, Personal Demons, Inheritance.
Okay, but that's now available as one novel collectively called The Gathering.
Yes, that's The Gathering.
Okay, and just give us a quick outline of the story, very quick, without giving anything away.
Without giving anything away.
Yeah.
Oh, you caught us flat-footed here.
Oh, sorry.
Did we mention it was a Gothic island? Small girl, strange powers, interesting challenges, growing up, dealing with people, overcoming bullying. I think we can say that much.
Yeah.
With some
Cool.
confidence.
Okay.
Frankenstein teddy bear.
Okay.
Yep.
Grief, misery, and dismay.
Yeah.
What's the second one? The grief, misery, and dismay.
There's one really good nasty wet explosion.
Okay, that sounds good. There's some fantastic, like all the graphic novels. There's some amazing drawing in that particular one, and in all of them, in fact. Then the second one, I believe, is Victims. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm just popping that up on screen
No,
now.
second one.
Nope.
No, that's all right.
That's
I was ready to go along with that.
Okay.
Sinners next.
Sinners next. Okay, let me rearrange my screen. Hang on.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault. There we go. Sinners.
Yep. Sinners. At this point, the little girl is a bit grown up, and starting to hear voices, and things are getting the plot is thickening,
Okay.
and the island is under vague and general threat. And is that where
that's where the vampires really get going.
that's where the vampires get going?
Okay.
And there's
Yeah. So story with some bite then. Yes. Yes.
And it's a bit topical as well.
Yeah. It's a stunning cover on that one. Can I just say?
Oh, thank you.
So then we have Victims. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
That's next.
Okay. Let me put
That's
that over
the
there. So again, that carries on.
Yes, indeed. Again, the threat is beginning to focus even more. Salamander is even more beset. Owen is about as helpful as usual.
Okay.
Owen means well.
Yeah.
And it shocks me. Owen actually has fans out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, going on. And the werewolves are introduced at this point.
Okay. Now, those are the 3 that I believe are available at the moment.
Yes.
But I believe there's how many? But I believe there's plans for more. How many are there going to be in the series altogether, or have you not reached a conclusion yet?
Oh no, the script has been written since before I moved over here. There will be 2 additional volumes.
Okay.
Optimists and, should I say it?
Survivors.
Oh, okay. So is that an exclusive?
It might be. Hopeless Survivors is the last one.
Okay.
Which will fill you all with confidence, no doubt.
Well, I'm going to put the cover for Optimists up on the screen so people can see what the next volume is going to look like. Now, whenabouts is that coming out?
Well, in theory, in August.
In theory, in August, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Everything in the publishing world right now is...
Obviously, yes.
So, August-ish.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Yes.
We might be able to get an e-version out.
Yeah.
If we can't get a hard copy out, we'll try and do something. But
Yes.
it's all a bit lapping currently.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Now I'm just looking through the comments. So Mr. Ian Crichton says, "Did I hear a meow?"
Yes. Yes.
Not from my end, I can kind of hastily say.
There is Miss Tiggywinkle on the sofa, and she likes to join in, and no one is paying her any attention. She's sung in the background on music videos.
Oh, and I've got another question here. Actually, this is quite. I like this one. It's from John Hartless.
Hello, John.
And it's do you think the graphic novel is a better medium for certain types of story? Speaking as somebody who isn't very visual, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. There are possibilities with graphic novels that there's no comparison. You can do things with graphic novels that you can't do in any other medium. And there is also no upper limit to what or how well you can do it. You'll never be good enough at it. There will always be ways of storytelling that would be better, more interesting, new. There's just so much going on with it. Did that answer the question at all, or did I just blather?
No, I think, well, the question was about, do you think the graphic novel is a better medium for certain types of story? So certain types of story.
I think more it's a better medium for certain kinds of scene, and we've hit this, and it's partly why we're looking at light novels moving forward. Yeah, it's because if you want to have a conversation between 2 characters who aren't doing much except having a conversation, graphic novels are terrible. Yeah, it's a possible way to do it. You could get a lot more territory covered very quickly with just a page with some text on. If you want to kind of evoke a landscape or a city or a view or something, my God, you draw it. It's great. So it's brilliant for some things and quite limited for others. And we'd like to be more flexible moving forward. But so yes.
Okay. Got another question from Ian, which is actually quite another good one. I'm liking these. If you could cross over Hopeless Maine with any other comic, what would it be and why?
Oh, God, that's tricky.
I think it would be fun to cross over with the Professor Elemental comic because we get to work with so many cool people if we did that. And we liked them, and it was fun. So
that was a clever answer. Yeah.
There's a nice little plug there for Professor Elemental's comic, which I think you both have collaborated with the prof before now. So,
and we did have a little story in. Was it the second one?
Yes.
A little spooky story.
Cool. I'm going to have to go back and revisit those now because I've got all of those, and I read them and then put them away, and I need to dust them off.
The cover for the second issue, I think, is exceptional.
Did you have a hand in that by any chance?
I've forgotten. You're right.
Who knew?
I just remembered how good it was. I didn't remember that it was me.
So now tell us a little bit about, we talked a little about Hopeless Maine. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you might encounter if you were to get stuck on Hopeless Maine. And let's face it, if you get stuck on Hopeless Maine, you're not leaving because that's the way it works. So what sort of flora and fauna would people come across?
Well, here's a fan favorite. We've seen him before, but he's back again.
Yeah.
This is a spoonwalker.
So tell us about a spoonwalker.
Called spoonwalkers because, anyway.
It's a long and complicated story.
Yeah. A spoonwalker, it's like most things. It's like I will draw something, and then I will go to Nimue, what is this, and why have I done it? And then she comes up with a lot of really interesting backstory and reasons and everything.
Cool.
Tom favours things that are asymmetrical, have too many eyes, extra limbs, not enough limbs, bit familiar, slightly wrong.
Autobiographical, really.
Yeah, okay.
They're not all of them massively dangerous. Many of them won't kill you. They'll just do kind of sad, annoying things, and you wish they hadn't. But odd ones of them are toxic and dangerous.
Aside from owl demons.
Owl demons are good.
Owl demons will get you. There's spoonwalkers.
Yeah.
There are dust cats.
Like a cat and a sort of a hybrid of a cat and a vacuum cleaner that floats. Description here.
Yep.
I like the deer, which live in the woods and are kind of somewhere between a deer and a chicken and a bit green. They're kind of odd.
Okay.
Have more tentacles, in fact, than deer normally have. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the glass herons, partly because I'm a big fan of herons, and the glass herons just sound lovely, although rather more dangerous.
Yeah, apparently.
It's the looking into the transparent stomach of the glass heron and seeing something that you really wish you hadn't, familiar items of jewellery, that kind of thing. So they're just a little bit unsettling and slightly violent. But
I've got a relevant question from Andy Arbon. Hello, Andy. Saying, what is your favourite creature that you've created?
Oh goodness! Choose between your children, Tom. Yeah, I'm going to go with spoonwalkers. Actually,
spoonwalkers.
Yeah.
I've got one that we haven't unleashed in public yet. There's a languishing novella with a small brown bird that just echoes things that it's seen. So it'll follow people around, repeating things that they rather would have preferred not to have had repeated. Hit the body. So they're quite comedic and faintly sinister, which is my favourite combination of thing. But we haven't put them out there yet. They're pretty innocuous to look at.
So are they coming in the next, like one of the next books, or a story, or a?
Yeah, there's a prose thing that I started and stalled on because we were too far out of sync, and there was a bit of a jam around what Tom could draw, so I just kind of stopped writing it. But I'll pick it back up again when we're not quite so backed up with other projects, which will happen.
Yes, it will.
Now, so we talked a little bit about the animals one might encounter, but one of the lovely things about the island is the quirky individuals that live there. There are some amazing characters, astounding characters, all sorts of different people. So just tell us about a few of the characters.
You came up with most of them.
Didn't I?
You did.
Well, see, we won't talk about Anne Marie because that's a touchy subject.
There are witches. We can say that.
There are witches. There's Balthazar Lemon, who is sort of he's our steampunk ticket, aside from the fact that the island was cut off from the rest of the world in what would be our Victorian time. He is the mad inventor of the island.
Oh, we got more inventors coming in. There's
true.
Lily May, who has a walking chair of her own construction, and she's quite the tinkerer. And at some point we'll get round to Necessity, who is of course the mother of invention.
Of course. And now there's a doctor on the island, I understand.
Yes.
Yes, Doc will be a charming individual.
Very popular.
Yes.
Drunk, more likely to kill you than save you.
Yep.
Yeah. He's drunk. He's incompetent and vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very much your sacrifices have to be made kind of guy, and by this he never means him.
No.
He's become more politically relevant than he was when we started, which I resent, frankly.
Yeah,
he certainly has. I mean, he's kind of borderline non-comedic now, isn't it? Really, but but
we didn't mean to do that.
No. His motives are definitely dodgy, should we say? Yes. Now, one of my favourite characters. Now, actually, at this point, I should probably mention that Hopeless Maine is not just a series of graphic novels. Now, it's gone way beyond that. And I mean, there's all sorts of other things. We'll talk about some of the other printed stuff in a minute. But one of the lovely things that I think you've done, which I think is a fantastic. Just a fantastic thing that you've done is you've opened up Hopeless Maine to anybody who wants to contribute, can contribute on the website, hopelessmaine.com. And in fact, I think that's a good point to pop that up on the screen. So hopelessmaine.com, there's a thing called the Hopeless Vendetta, which is basically the kind of local newspaper. But all sorts of different people have been contributing to blog posts and poetry and stories and images and so on. In fact, we've got Craig Hallam with us. Hello, Craig, who writes occasionally some wonderful stuff for Hopeless Maine, and a whole load of other people have been creating some wonderful stuff. And one of the things I liked, and one of the people that I liked that came out of Hopeless Maine, of course, is Mrs. Beeton, who writes a column for the Hopeless Vendetta. So tell us a little bit. I'm just going to pop up Mrs. Beeton's little thing there. Mrs. Beeton is judging you with holding her eyeglasses. In fact, I'm going to move that because I'm hiding. I'm hiding you both. There we go. I'll put it up there. Hopefully people can see that. So appropriately above you both. So tell us a little bit about Mrs. Beeton and how she judges you.
She's fantastically hypocritical and has very odd values around what she thinks is important. So, kind of starched shirt collars are essential, but, maybe killing people is okay. So she's mostly a space into which I vent whatever has been annoying me. It's very cathartic. I haven't written any in a while, but I will probably jump back in at some point. But yeah, it's a little bit dark and twisted, and she probably killed her husband, and it looks like his body is in the cellar. And is she completely human, or is she mostly machine somewhere from the ribs down?
Oh, okay.
She's a creature of mystery, certainly, and alarm, and not even slightly charming, which is great.
I just like the way, I have to say, I like the way she's written. It's just she's got this. You can definitely imagine her peering down at her nose at everybody, judging everybody, and yet being such an incredible hypocrite. Again, quite a modern and relevant idea, really. I think in today's times. So I was going to talk a little bit, Tom. I was going to talk a little bit about your drawing process. And again, I was going to pop up some art for people to see.
Right.
So
I should make clear at this point that this is not the process for the current work for the graphic novels, which Nimue does the coloring on.
Yeah.
But when I'm forced to work all on my own, I do it. Yeah. Well,
actually, I'm going to show some pictures first. So I'm going to pop up full screen. Melisandre, but actually now this is a series of images you've done which basically are based on famous paintings.
Yes.
So I think people out there may be able to may have seen a painting that this resembles. So tell us a little bit about the idea behind this set of postcards and how you went about this.
We just as we were doing so, we choose a different theme for the 2-page spreads and the chapter covers in each volume, so that they're doing a different job in each book, and that's part of how we keep it fresh and interesting for ourselves. So we had the idea of doing, sort of iconic art images and then subverting them to our fell purposes as chapter covers and 2-page spreads. And pre-Raphaelite art just lent itself so very well to the subject matter.
Cool. And then, so in the same series, I'm just going to pop this one up. We've got what I would know is the Death of Chesterton.
Yes, neither Death nor Chatterton.
Yes.
It's Owen, and he's having a kip.
I see. So I get the. Yes, sorry. I've just realised the irony in the title there. Neither Death nor Chesterton. It's not Chesterton, and he's not dead.
Yes,
that's cool.
Aside from that, it's exactly the same.
Okay, and I've got another one in this same series just to show because I think these are quite fun. And this one is based on Whistler's Mother, I believe, but there's rather more tentacles in it than the original.
Perhaps. That's Witherspoon's mother. Mrs. Witherspoon is the cook at the Pallabrook Orphanage.
Oh, okay.
Which is one of the main settings of the story.
Yeah.
And she's, there's no deliveries of fresh food, and the place is fog enshrouded, so regular crops don't grow, and so on and so forth. So you've got to be really creative sourcing your ingredients, and Mrs. Witherspoon is indeed both creative and determined.
Two good qualities to have in a cook on Hopeless Maine, I would have thought. So the next thing is yes, another lovely image of yours, which is Sal on the Bridge of Bottles. How did this one come about? What was this about?
Okay, in that volume, the 2-page spreads were primarily journeying pieces, taking you from one place to another. And, you know, honestly, I just started drawing that one, and it all came. I can't remember the thought processes behind it at all. I think I was working much more from intuition, shall we say, at that point in my career.
Most of the narrative for that one has come in through the game. Keith Healing placed this as the bridge between Gaunt Street and the old Gaunt town, which is really creepy, sinister end of Hopeless Maine, as opposed to the normal, everyday, friendly, creepy, sinister bits of Hopeless Maine, and the Gaunt River underneath. So, yeah, that's one of those that somebody else came in and went, "Ha! I understand this bit," which is always good because we don't all know.
The other important bit about that one in terms of storytelling is it tells you a lot about the state of mind of the islanders, because here's this bridge and it's completely covered in bottles, hence the term Bridge of Bottles. And it's pretty clear in my mind that what happened is somebody was going across the bridge one day having a drink, and they drained the bottle and they set it down. And then the next person came across the bridge and went, oh, we're supposed to put bottles on the bridge to propitiate something. And then things started moving into the bottles. And so a whole positive feedback loop happened. But yeah, I think there are all sorts of little shrines and things, because, you know, we call people superstitious because they're afraid or they believe that there are things that are affecting their lives that they can't see. On Hopeless Maine, those are the realists. So you would do anything you possibly think of. You know, if I stack these 7 rocks and lean a stick against it, I won't die next week.
Yeah.
It's a good investment.
And then they do that, and then he dies the next week, and then people are going, no, it's not that. It's 4 sticks.
So yes. That's so. There's the sign of desperation, really. Sign of desperation.
Yeah. Creative desperation.
Yeah,
really.
We got a question from Nimrod here saying, in these unusual times, should we try end of the garden soup?
I think we're going to have to.
Yes.
So you're going to have to explain that to people who don't know what end of the garden soup is.
It's whatever the hell you can find chopped up small enough that it's not too obvious what it was that you found. But there is a bit of a Hopeless Maine tradition that this is also a really good way to hide the bodies, people bury them. So sometimes the end of the garden soup is people.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go back to just talking about the drawing process, because I've got something down here. Here we go. Let me switch back to your view, and I'm just going to pop this up on the screen, and I'm going to put it over there. And it's basically a little animation showing the process of drawing. And this particular illustration is from the Tales of Hope, one of the Tales of Hopeless Maine, which we're going to talk about in a second. But
beautiful written one.
But basically, you're starting off with a pencil drawing. Is this how you work?
Yeah. What I do is I sketch lightly, and then I where's my art supplies? Oh no!
Let me move that over that side.
I talked once where I was discussing my drawing process, and I said I draw and I crosshatch, and then I soften it with toilet paper.
Right.
And the other artist said, "Yes, I also use tissue." And I said, "Well, you may use tissue. I'm using toilet paper."
So that's where it's all going.
Yeah. But you get art, so stop complaining.
Yeah, okay.
So I soften it a bit, and then I reestablish the lines, and I keep doing that, and then erase out. I don't do as much of the cross-hatching as I used to. In the first 2 books, there were like 17 layers of cross-hatching and rubbing. But I'm a bit more sane now than I used to be then. in a bit more of a hurry.
And then it eventually gets coloured up.
It gets scanned.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wander, don't I? It gets scanned.
Early books.
Yeah. And then, he's referencing a particular image here.
Yes, true.
It gets scanned, and then Dr. Jeff gave me this actual Victorian paper, because I think he's cross about people who do things on backgrounds that are supposed to be vintage paper, and they look nothing like it.
Yeah.
So he gave me actual vintage paper, which I have scanned, and that ends up being the sort of the ground of almost all of my illustrations now, because I've done a lot of scans of it. Thank you, Dr. Jeff. So in Photoshop, everything is done in layers. So that's the ground layer. And then on top of that is the drawing layer set to multiply so that it makes everything underneath it darker. And then it's built up in layers of color. And then there's a top layer, which is saved for opaques, highlights, effects, glows, things like that.
Yeah. But you're saying that's changed a little bit over the years. So what are you doing now then? You're working a slightly different way.
Yeah.
I'm working a much better way now.
Right.
Because the way that I do it now is I draw it, then I pass it to Nimue.
Right.
And
I get to rub out the things that I think shouldn't be there. That's always an interesting choice. I get to have conversations that go, what is this? And 9 times out of 10, it's Owen's knee.
Right.
I don't know why Owen's knee is particularly. And we get to try and work out where one thing stops and another thing starts, because when you were doing it the way Tom used to do it, you could be vague about this, but less so with colour. So yeah, I come in with pencils and I apply them. I'm less frightened by colour than Tom is. He's a
I'm
proper goth,
colour-phobic, yeah.
And colour scares him. So I'm not afraid of bright colour. So I do that bit, and then he tones it down or tones it up. And,
I was bitten by a colour when I was very young.
Overlining in black pencil rather than ink, because we live with a cat. You don't really want ink and a cat in the same small space. That way lies disaster.
Oh, good carpet.
There is scanning, and then it's back to the glows and twiddly bits.
Yeah, we've still got the opaque layer that because colored pencils just can't get really needle fine, so little eye sparkles and things like that and glows.
Although I do try and do the glows. I've got some glow methods which I didn't have when we started. So yes. Cool.
So I suppose this is probably a good point to talk also about the other half of the equation, which is the writing.
Yeah.
That's going to be you, I think.
No, I have to fall back on the camera.
There she is.
So tell us a little bit about the writing process.
Oh God! Well, most of this was actually written more than 10 years ago. I wrote the core script while Tom was still in the States, and as I said, I wrote it more like a play for voices because I didn't have the faintest notion how to do page layout or anything. I've learnt, and I can get a lot more involved in that now. So mostly, at this point, I'm editing and negotiating with previous me to try and get something that will sit on the page. But yeah, when I started writing it, I thought it was going to be comics in the way that they just carry on. So not with something with sort of a coherent arc. So there was a bit of a revisiting process to try and get it into like graphic novel shape, as opposed to sort of we've put a lot of comics together and now it's a fat comic shape. But yeah, mostly it was a case of looking at what Tom had already come up with in terms of the island and most of the main characters he'd already devised, and going, well, how does this work then? And after that, it wasn't that complicated because a lot of it I just found was obvious, and going, well, if we start from here, then these things must happen and that must have happened and these people do this stuff, and it just turned up, really. We find this happens to people. The number of times people have had just turn up things that we knew and they didn't, and we're going, oh, the island's talking to you. It does this. So
yeah, I must admit sometimes. I mean, I have this experience as well, and I don't know. I've spoken to other writers who do that. Sometimes these stories they seem to write themselves. They just seem to have a life of their own, and you're not quite sure what's going on until you've actually kind of got typing.
We had a very funny one with my father, who writes the Squid and Teapot column on the Hopeless Vendetta, because he'd wandered into a plot point, and we had to take him aside and go, stop talking about this. Awkward. Stay away from the unmentionable
Actually,
thing.
that's a really good point, because obviously you've got this collaborative thing going on, and so how do you manage that? When you've got obviously an overall story and you've got an idea of where it's going, and you've got things you haven't kind of published yet. So how do you manage that in terms of other people writing stuff and creating stuff and maybe taking it in a direction you didn't want it to go in? Or
Fine. So that's really the only thing we've had to do is to flag up to my father that he had independently discovered a major plot point with no reference to us. We hadn't told him it was there.
Yeah.
That's the only issue we've had, which is funny.
And we pick our co-conspirators very well. So, can I jump back, because I'm kicking myself now. Ian Crichton's question.
Yeah.
About what other comic would you cross it with?
Yeah.
A crossover. Boston Metaphysical would be such a natural match. Yeah. It would be brilliant, because of both New England and Boston, and we're fans. So, okay, sorry, done.
Yeah, Boston Metaphysical.
Or metaphysical, either of those.
You were saying that you picked your collaborators really carefully, and yet you ended up doing something with me. So I can't see how that works.
Case in point.
So I suppose that's a really good point at which to talk about a slightly newer departure for Hopeless Maine, which is a series of illustrated books, really. So going away a little bit from the graphic novel, still using your talent for illustration, but something which is mainly written.
Yes.
And now my alter ego, Keith Errington, did the writing, and Tom did the illustration of the first one, the Odyssey, and then you both created the second one, New England Gothic. And we did a Kickstarter last year, which was really successful and worked really well. How did you find, from your point of view, how did you find that whole process of the Kickstarter and so on?
We never have done it without you.
It was so easy because you did it all.
Okay, stop that now.
I love this sort of thing because I'm lazy.
Well, we're not collectively kind of good at paperwork or that good at logistics, and I don't think we'd have ever taken on something on that scale. It was far more ambitious than either of our little brains can manage. But oh gosh, you made it so easy for us. It was great.
Well, it worked out really well because I've had contributed a couple of small things to Hopeless Maine, and I wanted to write something, or these stories were turning into a much bigger thing. So
they do.
and then we had this conversation where you had a story that you wanted to publish as well. So it seemed to make a lot of sense. I'm going to pop up the covers now. In fact, I'm going to switch to showing you two, and then I'm going to pop the covers up. So there was two stories. There was the Odyssey, which I had a hand in writing, which is a kind of Victorian adventure tale, really. It's a bit Indiana Jones meets a bit of Lovecraft and a bit of Jules Verne. It was all of that mixed in together in a melting pot. And then there's New England Gothic, which Nimue you wrote, which was the story of the childhood of Anna Marie Nightingale, who is one of the key characters. And
Nightshade.
Yeah, sorry, Nightshade. What did I say? Nightingale. See,
it's okay.
Nightshade's much better. Anyway, so and I liked that a lot, and she's one of my favourite characters, even though I can't remember her name. And and in fact, my story touches a little bit, but I was quite careful to try and work around what had already been written. So my story was firmly set in what was already written, so I knew what the landscape was and not to tread on any toes. And I had a lot of fun with it. I like limitations, but those two are still available, so you can still get both those books. The Kickstarter, as I say, was really good. We did the obituaries as well, which was fun. But there are other things as well that are out there. There's a role-playing game, I believe. So that was Keith Healing, wasn't it? So tell us a little bit about how the role-playing game came about.
Okay. How it came about? Well, it's role, like everything we do, it's complicated. Keith came to us because he asked if we would be interested in there being a Hopeless Maine role-playing game. Or the frog thing. Which is what we do when we mean yes.
Yeah.
And so he started writing it, and then it had a really strange and torturous path to publication. And it's actually not yet there yet. There's a combination of two American companies that are going to be bringing out the new shiny version of the Hopeless Maine roleplay game, Travels in Hopeless. So stay tuned, follow us on social media, and you'll know about that when it happens.
Cool. Awesome.
I don't know if I tell about anyway. No, that's great. Anyway, sorry.
You have to have some secrets, I guess. But
Yes.
role playing is ideal for Hopeless Maine because every role playing game needs monsters, needs adventures, and there's loads of those in the world of Hopeless Maine. So I think that worked out really very well. Now, I know you're working on some other things, and in fact, there's a big project that, were it not for our current situation, will probably be progressing apace, but at the moment is a little bit stalled. So tell us about the next big thing, the next big media, conquering the new media by Hopeless Maine.
Right. Well, the whole journey of this is if you go to the Hopeless Vendetta, you'll get the whole story about how all of this started. But we were watching silent films, and we were talking about how much silent films with the placards for the words and so on is like, this is sequential art, this is comics. This is a very similar way of storytelling. It feels the same. And we thought, how cool would it be to do like The Blind Fisherman as a silent film? And we just like, yeah. And so I went on Facebook and said, how cool would it be if there was a Blind Fisherman silent film? And then Greg McNeil popped up and he went, yes, yes, we're doing this. And then other people have fallen in, and we've got Matt Inkle, not Mank Ittle. I'm sorry, Matt. I'm so sorry. Matt Inkle, who is one of just the most amazing maker, who actually happened to have done some training with Jim Henson's Creature Workshop.
Right.
And so we started talking about the puppets, and he said he could make them. And so we needed puppets because there's a bit where a child is thrown in the sea, and they don't let you do that.
No?
Apparently.
Okay.
Rules.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we thought, okay, artificial child. That's a puppet, isn't it? And there's also the creatures that would be difficult to actually difficult and dangerous to gather and bring to the set. So Matt is going to have to make those as well. So and so we found all of the people that we needed, and then Nimue wrote the script with
John Bassett, who does
and you need to come in more to the middle of it.
I'm trying to find comfortable places to sit.
Oh, sorry.
John does Stroud Steampunk Weekend, and he's done a lot of scripting and theatre festivals and writing with the stage and television and stuff. And his scripting's really sharp, and frankly, mine isn't. So we passed things back and forth, and it was a really good process. It's been nice for him to work with. I love collaborating. We've got such an amazing team on this.
And there's very early on, back when we were struggling and everything was difficult, I asked Walter Sickert in the Army of Broken Toys, which is one of my favorite bands in the world at all ever and still is, and they're amazing. I asked if they'd do a Hopeless Maine song, and he did, and I heard it, and I was completely blown away. So we knew that there could only be one band for the soundtrack, and we asked them if they would do it, and they said yes, of course. So they will be doing the soundtrack for the film.
Cool, that's awesome. Now I'm just going to, you mentioned a few people there, and just for the benefit of those people at home. So first of all, let's start let's go in reverse order. So Walter Sickert, that's what his band looks like, Walter Sickert and the Army of Toys. And if you're interested in his music, which was some of the inspiration of Hopeless Maine, then you can check him out at armyoftoys.com.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned Matt Inkle.
Yes.
Who, if you're a steampunk, you'll probably know him as Arcane Armory.
Yes.
And so he's got an Etsy shop. So if you look for Arcane Armory on Etsy, you'll find him. And then perhaps a little word about Greg, who's Dark Box Images.
Yes.
He does the most amazing stuff. And just to give people watching this an idea of the kind of things he does. I've got a couple of his portraits I'm just going to briefly bring up on screen. So that one I'm going to put over there. That's Dr. Jeff. Fantastic image of Dr. Jeff. And this one is an image of Mr. B, who many of you will know. So Mr. B and Dr. Jeff there. So he's quite amazing. He does these wet plate photography, I believe it's called.
Yes. Yeah.
So wet plate photography. And basically he uses an amazingly old camera, I think I'm right in saying, to shoot this. And in fact, I think you're intending to try and shoot the movie on an old camera.
Yeah, there is no try.
Intrinsic to the whole notion of the project to get a hand-wound camera and do it on the period technology. And Greg knows far more than most about this sort of thing.
Than any natural human being should.
And he's passionate about cameras and period film and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's really exciting to be working with him. And he did a lot of coaching us about what to think about and how to even approach it, because having had this lunatic idea, we had no bloody idea how to take it forward.
It's like, okay, we can't do it with the special effects. We've got creatures and so on. We can't really do this. And Greg goes, "Oh yes, we can," and sends me a link to a 1920 film.
So it's been such a good learning process, as well as sort of getting to muck about with people. It's been great.
Yeah, I always find it's brilliant to work with other people who are creative. It's just you may have some ideas yourself, and you may have kind of an idea of where it's going, but it's just so much more interesting when you work with other people, because it just goes in different places you never thought it would, and things get done you never thought would get done, and the end result is something which is always better than what you could manage on your own, I think, anyway. So just going to wrap up soon, but I just had a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. We had one earlier on, actually, which I think. So it was, if you ran holidays to Hopeless Maine, what would your marketing strapline be?
Oh, didn't Cliff Cumber come up with this one?
Hopeless Maine, see it before it sees you.
see it before it sees you. I like that.
Or, my God, what are you thinking?
Now, I wanted to kind of finish up by asking you kind of questions that's perhaps slightly more relevant to our current situation. Now, like me, you work from home, but I know that you work in quite a finite area, and you have been for quite some time. So how do you cope with that? Because obviously that's something which a lot of people are now finding themselves working from home and having to work with family and cats and not spoonwalkers necessarily or tentacles. But so how have you coped with that? How have you managed?
It's not a managing issue for us. We get along really well. And for 2 years we lived on a narrowboat, and 6 feet wide and 45 feet long, living, working, boy, cat, everything. We just get along really well. This is the essence of it.
This is my favorite human being in the world.
Yeah.
But do you have any tips for things like workspaces or avoiding distractions or things like that?
Well,
we find it easy, so we're probably the worst people to ask. Yeah. It's difficult for us.
The only thing we have is, like, in the morning, or sometimes when the schedule works this way, in the morning she's doing wordy things. So doing anything with sound on that's got words while she's doing wordy things, doesn't work.
But we've just sort of figured it out as we go, really.
But yeah, I think that's the thing, is never assume that the other person knows what you're thinking or knows what you want. Say it out loud with words and your mouth.
Yes.
Yes, I like that. That's very good. So I'm gonna finish up by just talking about obviously, if people are interested in your work, if they're interested in graphic novels, if they're interested in Nimue's writing and so on, where can they go? Well, I've got the Hopeless Maine. Link at the bottom of the screen, and it's big enough for anybody to read it. So go to hopelessmaine.com and you'll learn all about Hopeless Maine, and there's on the website you'll find links to the graphic novels and all sorts of things. So do check that out. Nimue, you're on Patreon.
Yeah.
So I'm just popping that up on screen.
All manner of stuff on there.
Yeah.
And you can be a glass heron
Yes,
on her Patreon.
you can. That's one of the levels, I believe.
Cat,
or a small thing in a bottle.
or a small thing in a bottle. There's something to aspire to.
There's something every week.
Yeah, so do check out Patreon, and I'll be talking about Patreon in a future video. If those people who are not familiar with the way Patreon works and how it can help creatives or how you can support creatives, so I'll be doing that in a future video. So look out for that. But also, you're on YouTube as well. I'm just going to put that up on the screen. There we go. And you've been reading a story. Now, I haven't quite got to the bottom of this. Are you making this story up as you go along? How is this story coming about? It's called Wherefore, isn't it?
It's called Wherefore, and I will give away that might be a pun.
Oh, okay.
I am writing this by the seat of my pants.
Right.
It's a sort of a soap opera format, so I'm just not worrying about story arcs and just taking it episode by episode because it's the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
I have a fabulous co-conspirator on this, Bob Fry, who is making the most glorious and outlandish suggestions about places I might go, and we play around with concepts, and then I go away and see what I could write. And tomorrow I'm recording something that he's written, which I'm very excited about. It's lush and bizarre and takes the whole thing forward. So yeah, it's supernatural, it's ridiculous. It's probably going to be full of outrageous relationships because that's just fun. It's going to be fun. Nothing terrible will happen, and there will be little or no violence unless it's funny. I'm doing it to cheer myself up. I'm doing it to cheer up anybody who is cheered by that kind of silliness. So that's Wherefore. I
must admit, I think it features the most extraordinary writing, if I can say that. It's wonderful, really wonderful. And so that's you're posting that on Facebook, I know, but it's also available on your YouTube channel, which I've got on the screen at the moment. So, well, thank you very much for chatting to me tonight. It's been a pleasure as always. It's always lovely to talk to you both, and it's always great to hear two people who are passionate about creativity. And two people who work so well together as well. That's really lovely. So that's Tom Nimue Brown. So thank you very much, and we'll say goodbye. And we'll, as I say, do follow them and check out their work. And we'll see you again. So that was Tom and Nimue Brown. It's lovely to chat to them. They are fantastically creative people. Tom's a fantastic illustrator. Nimue is an amazing writer. Two of the most creative people I know. So do follow them. So that's all for this evening's interview. We'll be doing some more next week. Over the weekend, I might be doing some more general stuff. I'm planning to do something about Patreon and something about WeTransfer. And also a roundup of all the things that people are doing on the internet to keep people amused, and all the things you could get involved in on the internet. And including, of course, Steampunk Over Ether, which is the whole point of of pushing these things, is to get people involved in the festival over the weekend of the 25th, 26th of April. Look out for SteamPaper as well. There will be an edition of SteamPaper next week, which is going to be a general roundup of because there's very little, obviously there's no events at the moment, so it'll be a roundup of creative people, performers, traders, and people like that you can support, along with some features and also some articles on what's going on the internet that you can get involved in. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back soon with more.